Hi and welcome back, Lady Joyful here, and I'm so glad you could join me today for release day at Sasayaki Glitter. And I am going to be colouring up one of the images from the new release. This is Beeutiful, which is this little girl image in a bee dress. And as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to have a play with this. I had an idea I wanted to make, and that's exactly what I ended up doing. So I'm going to start by colouring in her skin. And I have Spectrum my Illustrator markers that I'm using for all my colouring. I will have the caps on screen so that you can see what colours I have used if you want to recreate this. And all the products I will be using in this video will be listed and linked in the description box below if you want to find anything. So I'm going with some pale skin tones for this card. I have been playing on with other skin tones recently, but I decided to go more towards what I've been most familiar with, I guess, as my skin tones. So I started by putting a layer of my lightest colour all over the skin, and then from there I moved on to the darkest colours, laying in the shadow areas, and then each time I change pen I am going one shade lighter towards my lightest colour, and each time I am bringing the colour further into the centre of the face. I did, as you can see, add some shadow behind the nose as well as on the edges of the face, because I felt the way the nose has been drawn, it's kind of an upturned nose, and I think it would have a shadow behind it, so I wanted to add that in. And I brought in this blush colour just to add a little colour to the cheeks, to give ever so slightly rosy cheeks. It's a very subtle colour, and I'm blending it out with the ivory again. And do remember that your colours won't be quite true when you first colour them, because they will look almost grayer when the paper is wet with the ink, so you need to let it dry back a bit before you can see the actual colours. So having completed the skin, I'm going to move on to the hair, and here I'm starting by laying in my darkest colours in all the shadow areas, and I will then also flick in from all the ends basically, and the part and where the hair tie is, those count as ends in this case as well. And I'm just going to work through in flicking motions, again going from my darker shade, stepping down a shade each time as I go. And with each shade the flicking motions should get longer, going further towards the centre so they eventually meet up in the middle. Some people do like to leave a white highlight in the centre, but I do not prefer to do that myself. I do like the way it looks, but I haven't managed to pull it off. I don't feel comfortable doing it. So I'm just going to keep flicking in the colour, and I'm trying to follow the lines of the way the hair is drawn, so for the curves where it curves, and try and make it look natural. And once I got through to my lightest layer, I felt like there wasn't enough contrast. So I'm going back in with my darker colours and just building up those shadow areas, just to help add contrast back in and add more depth and contrast to the hair. I wanted to add just a hint of colour to the wings. They are kind of transparent wings, so I brought in this pale mint colour to go across those. And then I will start colouring my yellow areas. The dress, hairband, shoes and the bubbles on her antennae are all going to be yellow. I'm going to start by laying in my darkest areas into the folds and into, for example, the left hand side of the dress, the left hand side of the hairband. The left hand side is the preferred place for me to place my shadows. I tend to colour as though my light source is coming from the right hand side, in which case all the shadows should be on the left. Sometimes I will colour with an image that has a specific light source, in which case I will change and do the light source so that it is coming from wherever that specific light source is, rather than using my right hand side light source. I'm no expert at light source, sometimes I really am not sure what I'm doing with it, but I try my best. So when I put down all the yellow on the dress, I felt there wasn't enough contrast. So I brought in a darker shade, the Mimosa I believe it was, to add some darker shadows into that yellow. It's more of an orange tone, but with the other yellows it really helps to give some depth and shading to those areas. So here I'm going to use those same colours, the Mimosa and then the CT3 2 and 1 I believe it is, to colour the shoes. And again, I'm paying attention to the roundness of the shoes and where the light would be hitting them. I used the CT3 to add some yellow to the very edging of those wings. And then I'm going to colour the bubbles on her antennae. And I'm putting the GY2 on the left hand side, so that's my darkest colour. The CT3, which is my next darkest, I will bring out that GY2 a bit, and I will also go around the right hand side to add just a hint of shadow there. The reason I do this is because they're rounded, and having that shadow on the back just really helps bring them up and make them look rounded. Next I will add the colour to the soles of her shoes, and I'm going with some dark greys for this. I don't have a very large selection of dark greys. If you've watched my other videos recently, you will know I normally use Yusu markers for my greys because I didn't have any Spectrum Noir greys, but I do have some now, so I'm trying to use them instead. After finishing her shoes, I am moving on to colouring the bucket, and I want the bucket to be brown, but I also want it to be not the same brown as her hair, so I'm choosing some slightly different shades of brown. I don't want it to be too different, but I also don't want it to look like they're identical, so I'll just colour that in. And then I'm going to move on to colouring the honey in the bucket. The honey, for such a small area, did take me quite a while to come up with a colour combination. I ended up going on the Kitten Clouder Facebook page and asking for suggestions, and then I had a play with my different colours on some scrap paper until I came up with this combination, which I thought worked well for what I wanted and with the other colours that I had. I also added some white gel pen highlights to that honey because of course honey is quite shiny, so I wanted to add that shine. I'm going to use the same colours that I had used for colouring the honey to add my grounding to my image. So I'm adding shadows starting out from her shoes. And again, if you remember, the light source is coming from the right, so from behind. So the shadow should be spreading in front of her. So I put that in and coloured it, as I said, exactly like I had coloured the honey. And then I'm just going to use a very light colour. I used the ivory to just fill in the rest of the ground. And grounding images really makes them look more realistic, more like they are in a place rather than just kind of floating out there in nothingness. So I was trying to make sure I had my line straight, and I decided it would be easiest to bring in a ruler and kind of line things up with my grip mat and the ruler and draw the line in, so I knew exactly where I needed to fill my ground out to. So I'll just finish filling that out. And I decided I wanted to add a touch of shimmer to her wings, and I will also add it to the honey. So I'm using a Nouveau glitter pen. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but again it will be in the description box down below. It gives some very subtle shimmer, but I just wanted to add that to the wings and the honey because I felt like they needed that. Okay, so once I am done with that, I'm going to start working on my background, and I'm using hexagons for my background. I did have a play around working out how I wanted to arrange them off screen, but basically I have 3 different sizes of hexagons and I'm going to kind of tile them together. I have one which is a brown patterned paper and then several different brown tones in pearlized papers. And this won't be perfect tiling. If you want to have perfect tiling, you will need to have the hexagons be all the same size. If you're having uneven sizes like I have done, then there will be some places that the angles won't meet up if you wanted to put other ones in between, if that makes sense. So I trimmed away the overhanging pieces and brought in my focal panel again just to check how things looked, and then I'm going to use some of those offcuts to add some more hexagons into place. And I believe I also die cut a couple more just to fill out the area a bit more. I don't fill the whole card base with the hexagons, just make a strip. There's kind of like a diagonal line across the card base. So here again I filled it out a bit more with some offcuts and some more die cut ones. And I will trim off the overhanging pieces again and see if I want to add any of them in behind the faux panel, which I decided I would add this one. I did try to make sure as well that the colours were well represented across the card, not having any too close to each other, for example. Then I'm using some foam tape to pop up my focal panel, and then I will add my sentiment. And I have some copper foil stickers with letters on them, and I am spelling out the words BU. So I'm just laying them into place how I want them, and I'm kind of tiling them similar to how I'd done the background, so there's a slight gap between them. So I will just position each of those into place until I am happy with them. And then of course some of them are slightly overlapping the edge of my oval, so to make sure that they're not going to fall off, I put some foam tape in behind them and then I adhered them back into place so that foam tape just supports them a bit. And that finishes my card. As I said, all the products are down below, and you can head over to the Sasayaki Glitter shop to see what else is in the new release. If you liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe both to my channel and the Sasayaki Glitter YouTube channel by clicking the buttons on screen. There are some more videos here that you may enjoy, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments or over on social media. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!